David, thank you very much. Folks, my name's Randy Campbell. As most of you know by now, I'm real sure. I'm just delighted as ever to have Mr. Jeff Paunicka speaking here. I believe it was last summer at the Summer Fun Show that Jeff gave part one of this presentation. It was well attended, it was well received. I had 3 different people come up to my table, I'm a grader for ICG, and say how much they enjoyed his program. And Jeff has kindly consented to give another program on somewhat the same subject, but with some new and updated information. And quite frankly, there are some people in the Tampa Bay area who could not get to Orlando to hear his excellent talk this past summer. So considering the reception it got, I thought it was important we have him give it here in Tampa, because it's something that everybody needs to be aware of who collects paper money, and that is the doctoring of modern notes and the changing of them and the messing around with them. And Jeff is a recognized expert in that area. He has his own business in paper money. He's a frequent lecturer. He is a graduate of Notre Dame. Would that be correct, sir?
Yes.
And so he's a well-rounded individual with extreme vast knowledge of paper money. Speaks at several coin shows, clubs, and conventions. And he's one of these coin dealers who believes in sharing his knowledge with his fellow collectors. I always believed when I was an active dealer that the smarter my customer was, the more he knew about silver dollars or whatever coin I was selling, the better customer he would be. And I think Jeff would agree with that. So you're on your way to being a smarter consumer, and you'll certainly know more about doctored paper money when you leave this room today. It's my real distinct pleasure to introduce to you from Indiana, Mr. Jeff Paunicka. Jeff?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, bud. Have a good time here. We sure appreciate you doing this.
And I appreciate being here. It's great to see a number of people I've known for years and new faces. I learn more and more from you guys every time I give a presentation. I can certainly, regurgitate different things that I've learned over the years, but if I don't share it, it's worthless. It has to be shared with other people. And with the endeavors that we're playing with and the amount of money in some respects, we really need to address some of these things. Some people that I see here I have well respected for years, Jim, Mr. Joe Bowling, and some other friends. This is really great to be here to see you folks. If nothing else, I want you to walk out to learn just one thing, and that's it. If you don't learn one thing, then I haven't done my job. But I'm sure there's a lot of stuff here on the material, the content of this presentation has taken me decades to put together. And there's got to be at least one piece of material that you'll pick up to go on your road with and to dealing with your endeavors in currency. My background, I'm president of Insight 3. It's an international marketing company I've started up. I'm an entrepreneur. Was in the banking arena for many years and have been dealing with numismatics since I was 10 years old as a dealer. And so it's been over 50 years I've been doing this, and it's just a passion in my life to do this over and over. And being involved in banking operations has given me some very good insights on dealing with money and working for Mellon Financial Services in North America. I'm also a member of the Professional Currency Dealers Association and the International Banknote Society, and one of my projects I've been working on, and hopefully it can get finished this year, is a reference, it's a historical of the monetary system of the Bahamas and a currency reference guide. Again, my educational background, I have an MBA from the University of Notre Dame and from John Carroll University in Cleveland. I have to include my partner that helps me do a lot of the presentations, my wife, Kathy, in the back. Between her and I, this presentation is very meaningful. My undergraduate degree is in spectral chemistry, hers is in organic. So we talk chemistry all the time. Best thing to do is let's get everybody on a central focus here and comfort level. So I got quizzes. All right, Whose face appears on the current $5 note? There we go. That's an easy one. Number 2, whose face appears on the $500 note? Correct, McKinley. What image is on the reverse of the $10 bill?
Treasury building?
You guys are doing good. What image is on the reverse of a $50 bill? U.S. Capitol. I heard it back there once. These get a little more rougher. Okay, and then of course in 1928, with the BEP, the government standardized all the designs on a small currency, and this is basically a summary table of who's on each note on the fronts and the back. Level 2 of the quiz.
Martha Washington.
There we go. Level 2, number 6. What note did the sweet potato dinner appear on the Confederate currency? Okay. And that's it. 1861 was a T30, a $10 bill with General Francis Marion inviting a British officer to share. He's inviting someone to share his meal with them. I've only had 2 people get this right. What note did the key speaker of the Gettysburg Address appear on? Abraham Lincoln appeared at the Gettysburg Address, but he was the warm-up.
The speaker was Edward Everett, but I don't know what number.
That's the answer. So now 3 people have gotten that right. That's very good.
Well, I didn't know what note, I knew the speaker.
But that's it. You've got it. And that's perfect. He was also a congressman, a senator, governor of Massachusetts, a secretary of state, the president of Harvard University, and number 8. From which original colony did John Hart, signer of the Declaration of Independence, also sign currency? Pennsylvania. New Jersey, right. And 2 different issues, February and March of 1776-75. That's his signature right there. All my presentations, I've tried to make a distinction that we're involved in collecting. We're not just accumulating. Some of you may be just accumulating, but from my perspective, I profess that we got to keep track what we're buying, where we got it, how much we paid for it, because someone will say, well, what's your collection worth? Do you have? It stands to reason that you should know these things of what you've got, because if you don't know what you got, then do you know what you need to get? It's disciplined, organized, research and study, and well managed. My father was just the opposite. He was lack of focus, pile of storage, no concept of complete and poorly managed. But he had some nice collections. And, a couple things along with that. I believe in the 3 R's. You got to read, do your research, and find out your resources. Do a lot of reading on whatever currency you can. Do as much research. What's happening with with this notes? What do you know about it? Its history and resources. Remember, we're the temporary owners of these notes, and they will continue in most cases longer than we will. And you need to know where to buy them. You need to know where to sell them eventually. And so you have to know what your resources are. And my favorite saying is, the more that I know, the more I know I don't know. We talk about our valuable resources. We work hard to earn our money. There's just not a button to push on a keyboard that expenses the money. I wish there was. Money doesn't grow on a tree, and we certainly haven't found the end of the rainbow with that pot of gold sitting there. And the second thing is that when we get money, we certainly don't want to burn it. We want to put it to good use. We got enough issues on a 1040 filling that out every year, and we want to spend it wisely. It's a valuable resource for us. And along with this, we face a couple different things in this presentation. Is that we have some ethical dilemmas. Are we talking about enhancements that are made to a note, or is this just conservation? And then we have the concept, was this done for deception, where there's monetary gain or whatever to take advantage of the collectors that are in the market? So there's a couple things we want to take a look at. And of course, there's several different common techniques and some that are uncommon. You know, all kinds of washing and hanging the notes to dry, using the machines or whatever other technology, and everything's all nice, cleaned and pressed. I'd like to set up a definition here, and I've talked to quite a few different people in the currency market. And you know, we have some de facto standards or understandings of where we're at with, you know, note doctoring. What is it? And so I will state very specifically, and here's my definition. It's an intentional alteration with any chemical substances or processes which makes the note appear to be in a better state of preservation or more valuable than it is otherwise would be. You know, when we take a look at notes, you know, we certainly like to have things in original condition and in whatever state that they are. That there's no rules that say anything. Well, you know, when a note is circulated, it can only, this can be done, that can be done. You can run over it with your car, the dog could pick it up and chew on it. There's nothing that, you know, says that this is what can be happening to a note when it's circulated. It's anything. But changing it from what our condition is to something else is what we're concerned with. It even goes so far from a legal perspective that Collectors Universe, CLCT, basically filed a court suit based in California, a couple individuals for claiming they engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity, breach of contract, conspiracy, and unfair competition and fraud by submitting doctored coins for their review. And this goes all the way to the fact with the Lanham Act, with going to the point of consideration of racketeering and with unlawful, unfair, and fraudulent business practices. It's a serious issue in some cases. Let's talk a little bit about our fundamentals of our banknotes as a baseline to start from. We'll talk about construction and some features. There's different types of currency that are available in the market. Polymers, there's what, 30, almost 40 different countries now that are producing all their currency now on polymer substrate. It's biaxially oriented polypropylene. It's a new material. Basically, when you look at it, when it's constructed, it's basically the same stuff that's from like a pop bottle. First used in Australia in 1988. There's a totally different set of issues when dealing with the condition of those notes, and it's really beyond the scope of our discussions today. Paper. It's not really paper, but it's a composition of 25% linen and 75% cotton. When we start talking about authentication, the little pens that they use in the retail stores, basically it's diluted iodine. And what they're doing is they're looking for starch. Well, starch is in the cellulose in the fibers of paper money. But in true paper money, we don't have cellulose. So the test comes up as a pass. The iodine does not react. But if it was printed on paper, finds starch in the cellulose, it comes up and it fails. And that's what they're looking for. But we know, I think some of the other countries, they were bleaching the note using the paper, and that causes some problems also. The Orion constellation, it started back in '96. It's a pattern of symbols. It's on 5 yellow or green, orange circles, and these patterns will be twine. There may be series of 3, 4, or 5 patterns on the notes, depending on what notes that you're looking at in what country. It's basically the Orion star pattern. It is detected by imaging systems and scanners and copiers. When they would go through and they would scan the notes, the firmware actually would stop the scanning and say, I have an error. I can't continue this scan. I don't think a lot of the newer scanners today are even going through doing that type of security check anymore. But in the mid 2000 through 2007, 8, I remember from going on the currency forums and trying to scan some of the notes in, you couldn't do it. Because, and how old's your scanner?
It's in the same range you're talking about.
Yeah, and it locks up, it won't allow you to go any further. So only the 1s and 2s do not have the Orion constellations on there. And you can see some of the measurements that it uses, how many millimeters between each image. And then we can talk about anti-counterfeiting features that are on the notes. With creative printing, on the obverse size, the reverse size, hold up to the light and you got a complete image. A lot of Canadian notes use this type of creative printing. Of course, the micro printing, it's basically a security thread, and micro printing were introduced in the early 90s. First with the 50s and $100 notes to deter counterfeiting by advanced copiers and printers. Also, in Indiana, our driver's license are full of micro printing. It looks like a line that goes around the border. It's not, it's actually a micro print that goes around there. Most people don't know that anyhow. They wouldn't be able to detect it. Our security stripes, you see the security stripes, you look at them, and each stripe, depending on the denomination, has a different color, plus it has printing on there. Again, $5 is the blue, orange is on the 10, 20 green, 50 yellow, 100 red. And the only way to look at it is taking a UV or black light. I use one of these little portable ones. It's a fluorescent. It has the right wavelength for doing detections of several things. But and I have one of these also at home for basic. And this is probably one of your most accurate ways looking for notes. And besides, then you talk about the watermarks also, which we talk about here. They've been on notes for other countries for years. And the United States just started using them recently. And with the stripes, with the watermark, that does some deterrence. I was coming home from a show one day and had a stack of $100 bills, and I was going to the bank. I wanted to make a deposit. So I'm driving along, taking each note, holding it up, making sure I see a stripe and good old Ben Franklin's watermark. Oops. Oh, no. I pulled over. I says, I got took. Someone got me. And I sat and took a close look, and I go, I don't see Ben Franklin's face there. Wait a minute, there's a stripe. Oh, there he is. He's on the other side. What happened is when they first started printing these notes, it was critical that the workers on the press put the orientation of the paper in a certain way into the press. So I never deposited the note. I kept it. I don't know how much it's worth, but figured it's worth something more. You may see some of those errors around. I think they stopped that immediately after they were being produced to eliminate most of those errors. Of course, holograms, we got the three-dimensional images that are on there. An example, the hundreds. And then our magnetic inks. The ink that's used on all the Kensei has magnetic properties. There's magnetic detection in all bill counters and counterfeit detectors. They can sense these magnetic fields and validate the note. Case in point, one of the companies that I run, it's a technology company, and I developed a product for modifying and cleaning and maintaining bill validator readers. And basically what I did is, if you take a plain piece of paper and put it in a bill validator, it's not going to do anything. It won't even read it in. It won't even try to read it in to interpret it if it's a valid note. So I developed this product, and what I did is I used a magnetic substrate. And what would happen, it tricked the reader saying, oh, I got something magnetic. It pulls this alleged paper in, and it goes and optically tries to validate to see if it has the right pattern for the denominations, what it might be. And it pulls it in. It can't read it. There's nothing on there. I wasn't trying to deceive the machine. All I wanted to do was read it and send it back out. And my cards were pre-saturated in a cleaning solution, and I cleaned the bill validators, and I did quite well selling these into the gaming industry. Other anti-counterfeiting features, the note, you can feel the textures, look at the engravings to see the quality. We're looking for precision engraving on our notes. They're works of art. And, something that looks more smudged up and stuff, we can tell that there's something just not right with them. Looking at currency valuation, the valuations of our currency is going to be based on 4 different things: the age, the rarity, condition, and of course market demand. We're talking about colonial notes, fractional notes, 140, 240 years ago. We got their rarity, how many were printed, what are the surviving populations, and of course condition, which is what we're concerned about. Is it graded? Is it circulated or uncirculated? And these all, and of course our market, they all have factors in determining our values. Well, again, there's competition between collectors that own the best notes that are available, and they have premium effects on the prices. Grading scales are 1 to 70, and they were established to specify a relative condition of a note. If nothing else, we're looking for originality. We need to have originality. All our third-party grading companies have different designations of their own: PMG, their EPQ, PPQs, TOPS, original paper, OPQ. They all have their own designations. To give specification for the note has a characteristic of being exhibiting originality in there. Oops. Yeah. Okay. And again, our conditions, circulated or uncirculated. We've got everyday wear, there's bend, folds, wrinkles, corner bumps, graffiti, and filth. It's all relative to what we're talking about. Back in my earlier days, I was very ambitious undergraduate student. I was trying to make my mark in life, be a doctor. I studied chemistry. With college is a balance of social and academic education, and mine was a little more on the social side. And if nothing else, I was a little more prepared to be a bartender coming out of undergraduate school. But anyhow, I learned some fundamentals in chemistry that apply to a lot of different things in life, and I was very blessed to use that for the currency. Now we can talk about, from the basis, let's talk about several of the different things that where a note may have been doctored. Anytime we have a water effect, aqueous solutions, they take the fibers, expand them, and they make them swell. And as a result, we get a fuzzy appearance on the edges. When I take a note, I look at it, it's the first thing I look for. Is it fuzzy or is it a nice sharp edge? If it's fuzzy, it's been in some type of aqueous solution and swollen the fibers up. And you can't straighten that out. It just won't happen. I spent a lot of time taking a look at solvent effects. I had some fellows that were friends from a currency forum. One fellow asked, he goes, well, I've got this note here that someone laminated. How do I get the laminations off, so I can have the note? And it was a rare block sequence, I think, from a Hawaiian note. And I said, you leave it be, there's nothing you can do. Well, it had to be adventuresome. And, you know, I had a couple, wanted to do a couple trials here. And most of my tests that I did, and it wasn't to deceive anybody, it was just to see exactly what would happen. I used Philippine currency from, 1944 Victory notes. And the reason I did that, because they were printed by the BEP, and it's the same inks, and the same paper, and everything that we use for our currency. I figured these would be good, and they were relatively inexpensive to get. So we did some solvent to try to remove some tape and some of these laminations. We found out, they're highly viscous, and to get and loosen up the laminations. And, one of the first things we tried was methylene chloride. It's basically used in bonding acrylic plexiglass together. And it's highly viscous, evaporates very quickly, and it was very fast in removing the tape, and it had some effect on the ink bleeding. We tried using some carbon tetrachloride, basically industrial cleaner, and that had different types of effects also that were on there. I used 1,1,1-trichloroethane, which is used in MIS, IT departments. They used to use that for cleaning tape drives, the tape drive read heads. And then, of course, we tried using acetones, which they use so much in the coin world. It was slow acting. There was no residue. And effects, again, were a little bit different. We tried IPA, which is isopropyl alcohol 99%, which is what I used on my products for the gaming industry. And it was too aggressive on the inks. When you put it in the solution, you would see the ink would dilute in the solution. And with these solutions, they're non-water-based, they're non-aqueous, and they didn't swell the fibers up. Different effects and different rates, mostly on the inks. This was a subject that came up. This is new, we decided to put in. You've probably seen these notes sold on eBay and in different parts of the market. It's a legal tender with a gold seal and a gold serial number. So it's a gold certificate. No, it's not even close. They never printed them. It was chemically altered, and allegedly it was apparently done in boric acid or dry cleaning chemicals. And the boric acid would be for, they use it for what? Insecticides or cleaning products that you'd use at home. PVC damage. You ever see a note with PVC damage? It's got a really strange texture to it, and it's feel, almost kind of a waxy look. And you can take an attempt to put an acetone, but it'll take some of the PVC damage off of it, but the note's going to be washed out. It's dried. There's no originality left in it. You can tell it's been tampered. It was just best just to leave the note the way it was. We started talking about detergents. They actually want to wash a note. We're talking about optical brightening agents, OBAs, fluorescent brightening agents, fluorescent whitening agents. These are all put in with dyes that are absorbed in the ultraviolet and violet region, and basically they're re-emitting light in the blue region. There are additives that have been put in there, and the military has very specific regulations of what you can wash your fatigues in. If you would use a regular Tide in there and going out in the field, you'd be glowing with the night vision scopes that would be out there. So they're very particular in what the equipment can be cleaned with. You do a detection on this with ultraviolet light, it'll show up. Bleach, another brightening agent from ultraviolet aging, very common. You see foxing on Hawaii and North Africa notes. It's very common. Some of the guys, they'll take the bleach If they don't soak it in, which will hurt the paper, they'll put it over a bleach bath and let the vapors come up and attack the paper, but they'll kill the mold. You know, give it a smell test. You can tell if it's been in the presence of bleach. Some bleach detection after the note's been done. You'll have areas that had soiling or it's been folded over. You know, the surface disruption from the ink's gone. And there's nothing there to replace it. The back of the note's going to be completely unnaturally looked and washed out. It's water-based, so it's going to have the aqueous fuzz on it also. My dog Kino helps me with doing some sniff tests. Her nose is better than mine. But over time, you know, the paper will deteriorate using the bleach. Trimming. This is something else that we've taken a look at. Here's a note that came up that we had, and it had a little notch up on the upper left. I don't know if I picked this up from Long Beach this last year or not, but it had a little nick on it. But what they would do is they would say, okay, let's take a look at this, and we've got some more room on our margins. And they would take like where the red's at here, and they would do their score right there and right there. Net result, sharp corner. So at best, it's going to maybe come out looking maybe like a 61, 62, or 63. One way to do the detection on that, it is going to be a little bit smaller, is what I use is these templates. I make these up. I have them at home for different notes, especially on some of my world notes. Here's a Bahamas note, and basically I have my legends and my dimensions. I pick them up, line it up. If the note didn't come out right, I can tell if it was trimmed, if it wasn't cut right. That's something you can, you know, make at home and do your own testing on them to see if they come out right or not. Rust damage. Basically, it's classified as an environmental damage. You know, it's a little bit different than the Edsel you may have in your back yard or the tools. But again, it's rust from a paper clip, staples. And one of the ways to combating the rust, what some of the doctors use is they'll wink the notes. It's over-the-counter, simple product you can get in the grocery store. And basically what is it? It's hydrofluoric acid. And I mean, if you read what it says here, it's, if you put this in too much, contact with yourself, it can be, penetrate deep into your bones, and chronic exposure can cause irreversible damage. It's pretty strong acid to use. And I remember back in the old chemistry days, we used to use special hoods to use hydrofluoric acid in. Basically, let's take a look at the rust process, what happens. The main catalyst for rusting process is the hydrogen oxide, water. And iron or steel, even though it appears to be smooth and solid, it's not. You've got different layers, and what happens is the water gets into some of the cracks, and it starts to, on the exposed metal, and the hydrogen items come in contact, and you start forming acids, and they start rusting. And it causes more metal to be exposed, and it increases the rusting process. The paper basically acts like a sponge, absorbing all this acidic rust, and then it eats away at the paper, and presto, the paper's gone. It's vanished. The wink details, again, you use it to attack the stain currency. They're putting more acid in a concentrated form on the rust to dilute it. And at the same time, it does a job on the paper, if not rinsed out or neutralized. These were some notes that, if I recall, went up on auction about 2005, 2006. And they were at some major auctions, and the pictures of before and the way the notes showed up again afterwards. And it was very obvious that the notes were tampered with. And the monetary effect was pretty significant on the different values of these notes. This acidic damage, if you look at horse blankets on the back, the green inks that they used at that time, if they came into contact with any acidic vapors or solvents, it would turn the green ink blue. And if you're looking at a note and you see some of this on the back, avoid it. You don't have any idea if it's been washed out with the conjugate salts. It's been untreated. It's going to go into rapid deterioration. And just avoid it. It's just not worth dealing with it. Question is, what's a conjugate salt? Conjugate salt is specific to an acid. And what it is, it's salt that neutralizes. You don't take an acid and neutralize it with a base. That's not how it works. So what you use is a specific salt that neutralizes that acid. And that's the only way to really do it effectively. If, you know, in world chemistry, if you use a highly alkali solution on an acidic, it's just as bad. You've solved nothing. One of the other common areas that we see where we have a lot of rust is the ink erosion. And it's just an example. Basically what it's from is the ferrite. There was iron that was used in the black inks back in the 17 and 1800s. Fractional currency, we take a look at that, and basically what's happened, where the signatures, that spinner signatures rusted. And again, the whole process we talked about is basically remove the paper and you get open spots on it. Prime example of rusting. Start talking about pressing. You know, it's not that anybody had intent to press notes. When you receive some money or stock certificates, people throw them into the Bible. It was like the vault in the house. There was no intention to deceive anybody, but you know, pressing is done with intent in some cases. I think they call it smashing now. Some of the TPGs, they refer to it. And you know, they're trying to get everything knocked, you know, make that note perfectly flat again. But that's, you know, that's something that we deal with. And again, people use the Bibles or encyclopedias for years, but you know, that's what was there. You know, I did this presentation once in the Chicago Coin Club, and a question came up, well, you know, it wasn't a problem back then, so should it have any effect today? Well, again, it's lost some originality. We've lost embossing. The note's been pressed out. Back then, did they know what would be considered of a value back then? My personal taste on coins is not to have a coin that has tonnage on it. To me, that's oxidation. That's not original. It's, you know, it's worn down. And so take a look at a pressing of a note. The originality's gone. Yeah, I prefer to have it with the embossing, but back then they didn't know, and that's just something we have to deal with. But the intentional pressing, that's what we want to be a little more focused on, if we can determine it. One of the techniques is, you know, in the agricultural market, farmers go and they candle their eggs. They see if there's an embryo growing within the shell, and they can make a decision there to keep it or to dump it. And so we basically do the same thing with currency. And we do our candling, you know. We take it, you know, we're looking for residual oils and soiling from handling. Light handling can be different to see in ambient light. There's a beautiful note, silver certificate, then put it up in a candlelight. Look at how everything shows up. Ambient light, you can see the folds and stuff there, but there's the soil marks. It stands out, it's more prominent. Pressing detection. hold the note at an angle from the light, and you can see the embossing on this $5 silver certificate. Here's a beautiful looking seal poking through. Here's a serial number coming through. That's part of the originality that we want. If we don't have a flat note, we want to look for this embossing. And of course, when you have a note that's ironed, if you take a look at it, you'll see highly glossed over areas, and there's shiny spots on the notes. The picture doesn't come out as well as I would like, but when you take a note that's been pressed and hold it at an angle, take a look at it, and you'll see shiny spots that are going to be on the note. And that's one cause to be a little cautious that maybe there's been some ironing done in this situation. The second thing is, again, these shiny spots. On the picture, you can see there's a couple gray spots. There's some over here and up over here, up here, where they would not look on a normal note. It's also caused, you take a close look on, if you go to 20 power or 30 power scope, you'll see broken fibers. Pressing detection, we've got a couple concerns. In normal circulation, embossing's lost. A processed note can be pressed out flat to eliminate folds and look even better. We're also concerned about the note being re-embossed. Basically, re-embossing is when any part of the note has been traced over to give the appearance of natural embossing. It's from PMG. And this is basically what they're doing. Put it over a soft material, and they take a probe, like here, and they start tracing the serial numbers, and they start going over the seals. Well, one way to watch out for that is if a guy's going to show you something and he's check the whole note over. Make sure both serial numbers are embossed equally. Make sure that the serial, remember that's done with the same printing. The seal and the serial numbers are on the same printing. Make sure that there's embossing on that too. When that came down and hammered it down to put that ink in there, it really pressed it. And it's going to go through that paper. And if only half the serial numbers, if you take a second look, is embossed, it's probably been re-embossed. Kind of avoid it. Now let's talk about starch. Starch. Sometimes they take the notes, no body to them, trying to get a little bit more stiffness back to them. Yeah. It's just like your shirts. It's exactly the same material. It's basically a starch, cornstarch that they're putting through and in a solution, and then they're pressing it and ironing it. It's nothing different. How do you detect the starch? Well, you can do the black light test. Will show up on there. And you can use the pen. Well, you don't want to use the pen with the iodine because then you're going to have a mark on the note. You don't want to do that. So it's just something we have to be a little bit more cautious of, but there is a couple things we can do. And we can do some optical tests. If you take a note that has been ironed out, you can see right here, you can see some spots that are real shiny. And that's part of the starch molecules that have been pressed under heat to give some body back to the note. Again, they're crystals, and it just doesn't look natural at all. Starch mechanics. The chemical structure of starch, it's a big, long molecule. And with all these hydrocarbons and that are all over here, it makes it extremely rigid. It's like a fence. The bigger, the pieces of fence are put together, the more firm and stronger it is. And that's what's actually happening when this would be put on a note and would be ironed back on. It's a big molecule. It's heated and pressed on the paper and makes it more firm. So that's what's happening with starch. Tears. We got a little tear here, and one of the methods that's used is using a little Elmer's white glue. They take it real thin, And what they'll do is they'll sit there and wipe it off, and boy, it looks pretty good. Cover it up. Candle it. Look for opacity differences, the densities being a little different. Close your eyes, run the paper, your fingers across it, you can feel it. If there's a little bit of road bumps there, you may be able to feel it. But this is common doctoring. Just be aware of it. You've got professionals versus the amateurs doing this. You know the stories of out on the East Coast. There was some professionals that were archivally treating notes to make them better, but I think word got caught on what this was being done, and they're doing it for monetary gain. But you know what truly was it? What were they really doing? They're losing that originality, making it look. All the definitions of what we talked, they're altering it, trying to make it look different, and you know the motivation is probably greed and dollars. The non-pros, we can use some techniques and some methods, what I've showed you here. We can find some of the stuff that's done, but some of the guys that are really tough, it's difficult to find this stuff. It makes it rather difficult. I bought some notes once, this is at CPMX in Chicago, probably about 10 years ago. I had 5 legal tender wood choppers. And the guy says, well, you know, this is what I want for all 5 of them. They looked all uncirculated. Boy, I don't know. I spent a half hour going over these 5 notes. And I says, well, okay, that's fair for what the price is. I'll buy them. I took them home, and I put them on the scanner to put them on my inventory online. And when I did that, holy smokes, the flooding of the light, now the ambient light we had in the hall was, you know, like they have in the hall over there, and I had my lights and, you know, going out everywhere else. I saw nothing. But the flooding of the light from the copier, my scanner, was a little bit different. And I saw a couple pressed out folds that were on the notes, on one of the notes. So, but the other 4 were uncirculated, so I was okay. This one, well, it had 1 or 2 folds on it, but it was pressed out. Well, it was a lesson learned. You can't catch everything, but you try. Jason Bradford, had a discussion with him this last weekend on current market trends. And a couple things he wanted to share with me is things that they see from a third-party grader, that some of the issues that get to be a little more declining. The re-embossing, he says you don't see that much of it anymore. It's still there, but not as prevalent as it used to be. The smashing of notes, he says that's basically been cut down, just going out and pressing the notes. And mass quantity modifications, which basically the smashing notes is part of it. What we have found out that the increasing issues is that the guys that are note doctoring are getting a little smarter, and they want to make sure their efforts are more well placed into being a little bit more deceptive. One of the issues that came up was we were talking about specimen tampering and authentication, especially in the Asian markets. So what they're doing is they're taking notes that are traditional notes, and they're basically printing specimen on them or punching the appropriate holes or what on them to make that they have notes that are actually worth more than they really are. And he said that's one thing that's starting to come up a little bit more. Next thing, tear repairs and pinhole recoveries. They're going through and they're just starting to see a lot more of that being done. A lot of guys ignored doing that before, but there's just more increased activity on that. And repairs from black light detection. Let me explain this one. This was pretty interesting. So let's say someone goes and doctors a note, and it's typically, the result of it can be detected with a black light. Well, then they're treating it again with another compound or solvent that negates its detection by a black light. And he said that's getting to be difficult right now, and that's on the increase at this point. And in fiber repairs, detailed fiber repairs. And I said, well, explain this a little bit more to me. He says, well, let's say you have a small tear on the note. Well, he said they're going as far as taking micro tweezers and pulling fibers from notes and lacing them over the top of where the tear's at to mask it. And he says they're spending a lot of time to go and do that. And he said that's on the increase also right now. They're spending a lot more time. They're getting more specialized as far as what they're doing on doctoring. And then, of course, on increasing issues, items sold on eBay that have just small restored issues that are on them. What's our defense as a collector? What do we do? You know, you research as much as you can, read, research, right? Research how you can do detections. You know, I try to cover what I can and try to share it with what other people have made recommendations on. You buy cautiously with dealers that you can trust and that you know. And, you know, just network with very reliable sources. You guys have spent considerable money in a lot of cases on the currency, and you want to make sure that it's going, you know, for the right items that you're purchasing, and your values are protected. And, you know, network with these right people. I'm a member of PCDA. There's other reliable dealers that are out there, but I got to give them a plug. But, you know, it's a group of people that, of collectors. It's not a club that you join. It's a club that you're nominated by other members of people that are going to make a significant difference in contribution to the currency community. And I'm very proud to be part of that. And, you know, along with that, basically our dealers, that, you know, we have a code of ethics that we follow, of which is we cannot go and misrepresent what we have. We've got to say specifically. If I know there's a tear in a note, I've got to represent it as being such. My business means a lot to me. My reputation does. And having that on my cards means a lot to me because of that. And its global recognition is fairly significant because of that. And again, we publish our policies and stuff like that. So again, it's part of dealing with credible people that are out in the marketplace. And you know, you've got some good dealers that are out there today, and there's more, but just choose wisely. Anyhow, that's it. If you have any questions, I'm open to take whatever questions you have.
Can I just tell you one story?
Oh, please. I like stories.
I worked for a major retailer. Now, this goes back several years. It's okay. This goes back several years ago. I mean, the exact year was, some of you remember when the A&A's World's Fair money was in Boston. It was that summer, a few weeks before it. I was working on a project in the back of the store with the assistant manager. We had one of the garage doors on the truck bays open. That day was a nice, bright July day. And a woman from customer service comes running in with $100 bills in her hand. And he says to the assistant manager, "This does not feel like real money." Somebody had $2,000 of them and wanted, was a money order or send money or something, it's years ago. She says, "It don't feel like real money." Well, he looks at me, because he knows I collect paper money, and I take one of them and go up to the garage. I remember it's a bright, nice, sunny July day. Hold it up. I said, "It's got the thread in it. It's got watermarks." And she insists, "It don't feel like real money." So I says, "Call the police and be sure." He didn't have to. The police were pulling in. It seems guys have been going around with fake $100 bills. They'd hit, was it a Radio Shack and maybe a Best Buy or something like that, and they're wondering if they were still there. And sure enough, it was them. And to show you how bright this guy is, he comes out in the parking lot and says, "Hey, what's the problem? Why won't you take my money?" Well, after he was arrested, they searched the car and they found some other guy hiding under a blanket in the car, trying to hide. But now the US government has redesigned the $100 bill since then. But the point is this, you know, a few weeks later, the A&A was in Boston. I said to somebody at the BEP, I told them that story, and they says, yes, some of it's so good, the only way you can tell is by feel. You know, and I wished I could have kept one of them. I know it's illegal, but you know, you just wish, as a little souvenir, you could have kept one of those $100 bills, because you feel a real one. You know. But
That's an issue of counterfeiting, is having
Yeah.
it in your possession,
Yeah.
legal tender, yeah.
You know, it had watermark, it had the security thread. You know, as I understand it, organized crime is involved with some of this stuff.
Well, before the $100 bills were released, I understand that there's a lot of foreign countries that perfected the printing a lot better than we could. Yes.
You know, one of the cool things about your presentation is you showing some of the tools to use to detect counterfeits and stuff like that, or doctoring. As far as a black light is concerned, do you have any specifics around that you would suggest if you're gonna go out and buy one? What brand or what type, or does it have to be a certain strength?
Believe it or not, there is I really don't know what the brands are, but if you go to a pet store, they have a black light you can get there for looking to see where the puppy peed, where, you know, on the rug or something like that. Those work good. It's a fluorescent black light. There's some incandescent lights that are available out there. Just kind of take a look to make sure it has an appropriate black light wavelengths to choose from. Some of the LEDs that are out there, I wouldn't touch, because they're nothing but purple lights. And it's not gonna detect, it's not gonna do what you want. But the black light ones, it's, you know, got a white flashlight on one side and it's got the fluorescent bulb, those really work pretty good. And along with the ones that's used for currency validation, you know, that you'd have in a retail and stuff, it'll pull out the security stripes. That's bright enough. That works really decent for detecting, you know, if you're looking for starch and stuff.
One is what they call a long wave, short wave, or the types the post office uses to look at stamps and face your letters for cancellation. But that's very few security printers are yet using short wave UV features. They want one that detects long wave UV.
Right, there's two different categories of UV. Do a Google search and you'll find that they're out there, and that'll help you with your guide where you want to go. But you know, there's a couple good lamps out there that you can pick up. They're not that expensive. And certainly it really is worth it. You find one note that's been tampered with, it's worth it. Thank you, appreciate your time today.